Is it time to reimagine your future? The right business skills may make a difference in your career. At Capella University, we offer a relevant education that's designed to focus on what you need to know in the business world. We'll teach professional skills to help you pursue your goals, like business management, strategic planning, and effective communication. And you can apply these skills right away. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Tom, thanks for joining this afternoon.
Steve, thanks so much for having me on. And just listening to that, I sort of talk about the how stoic America was in the beginning and even up through the world wars. Think about a 16 or a 17-year-old back then willing to sacrifice their lives, and yet we talk about safe spaces today. So
no, it's so true, Tom. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you think verbal bullets are bad. Wait till you face real bullets. And you're so correct. And do you have any stories yourself about your family and how it affected, your parents or grandparents? And because my parents used to talk about December 7, 1941 as the date that changed everyone's life.
Well, my father was in World War II, but he served in Oakland, California, at a naval base, a naval hospital called Oak Knoll.
Wow.
And not far from where your wife Ann grew up. But I can't say that my family was particularly hard hit by any of this. We were. My generation was very lucky, so we didn't wind up in either of the wars. But if we can talk a little bit about someone who needs to be sent to a safe space, can we talk about Jerome Powell for a minute?
Yeah. Well, this is really important because Tom and I have been really down on Jerome Powell. He's the one who gave us 9% inflation in 2022. He's the one who let prices go up by about 25% in the last 4 years. So what do you think, Tom, should be done about Jerome Powell? Trump is very serious about potentially firing Jerome Powell. I think he ought to do it, but what say you?
Yeah, absolutely. And what a hypocrite. He's suddenly talking about the national debt, but I didn't hear that. So he made he made three really egregious errors because he thinks that the Federal Reserve should be managing our economy. But that's not what it should be. The economy, we should let the markets work. They should create a stable money supply and stop trying to get us to, quote, full employment. So here's his egregious errors.
Yeah.
When COVID comes, and what happens? Spending jumps. He floods the economy with dollars at the same time that the government shut down the economy over 30% for a period of time. If that's not the definition of where inflation starts. So, and he blithely says, Steve, that the printing of money didn't result in inflation, as if money's immune from the laws of economics and the law of demand, right?
Right.
And then he continues to accommodate with Biden's ridiculous Inflation Reduction Act. So for years now, he's been accommodating these $2 trillion deficits instead of saying we shouldn't have spent that money in the first place. Or where's Alan Greenspan when you need him?
Right.
And so once all this inflation comes around, what does he think is the only way to do this? Well, to put people out of work. How does he put people out of work? To kill demand? He raises interest rates.
Right.
In other words, he's whipsawing the economy. Hard enough for a business investor and companies to match consumer demand in an international market, but they also have to figure out what the Fed's thinking about every quarter, as if that should be their job, right? No, these are all ridiculous things. We need a chairman, by the way. I haven't forgiven the people who kept you off the Federal Reserve Board, and one of them is a U.S. senator. But we need a Federal Reserve who doesn't think its job is to manage the U.S. economy.
Well put. I mean, and by the way, the more they try to manage it, the more they mismanage it. We want the dollar to be as good as gold. I don't know if you've looked into this idea, but my friend Judy Shelton, who I had on the show last week, Tom, has talked about the idea of issuing gold-backed bonds that would hold their value because inflation has reignited in America. And I kind of like that idea, but I wonder what you think.
Well, here's what I think overall. We have $35 trillion in national debt. We have long-term growth rates below 2%. We have $2 trillion deficits. In other words, it may be that the CPI, which isn't equal to inflation, is close to the 2% that they target.
Say they want, yeah.
But we are one crisis away from it exploding again.
I know.
We're living on the edge. So one of my favorite lines is Steve Forbes, who you and I know is the expert on monetary policy. One of my favorite lines is imagine if we had clocks that were different hours every day. One day was 25 hours, one day was 23. How would you set up your day? They're doing that to money. So we have to get to a Federal Reserve with you and Kevin Warsh on it, who don't see the job as managing the economy, but instead
stabilizing
advocate
prices
for good economic policies.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's so true. And by the way, Steve used to talk about the idea of the New York minute, and is the New York minute different than the Los Angeles minute? But you're so right about that. You want something that holds its value. Now, there's a big question, Tom, about whether Trump would have the authority to fire Jerome Powell. His term is up, I think, in about 14 months or 15 months. I don't remember exactly, sometime in early to mid 2026. So the question that's been out there is, should he just wait him out or should he fire him? And I think if he tried to fire him, Jerome Powell said, look, I'm not leaving. If he tries to fire me, so that could cause a bit of a constitutional showdown. But what do you think about that situation?
The sun's shining, birds are singing, and all feels right in the world.
Until the season changes and suddenly you lose your motivation to get out of bed. In fact, 1 in 5 people experience some form of depression, no matter the season or time of year.
At the American Psychiatric Association Foundation, our vision is to build a mentally healthy nation for all, because we want you to live your best life and be your best you all year round.
Please visit mentallyhealthynation.org to learn more.
Well, I think what Trump needs to do is it's all about marketing. When he gets in, he's got to say, look, our goal is to reduce spending. At the same time, we're increasing supply. We're going to reduce the impediments to a strong economy. We're going to cut down the federal government. And we need to know, Jerome Powell, whether you support these policies. And if he says he can't, then Trump should say the best thing you can do for the country is to step aside because of your prior mismanagement, and put the pressure on Powell to either support these rational policies of a government that doesn't run $2 trillion deficits or not.
Oh, that's well put. And I think that's right. And the American people are fed up with the Fed. They make up the rules as they go along. By the way, Time Magazine almost made Jerome Powell their man of the year last year. And if Taylor Swift hadn't been, had such a good year, he might well have been. But I don't understand the accolades for him. I mean, he's been, as you said, he's up and down. I mean, the monetary policies have been like a roller coaster, which is economically destabilizing. And you're right. I think getting somebody like Kevin Warsh in there who will make the dollar strong and stable would be exactly the right thing to do.
Yeah, and you should be on there as well. We need people to understand that if you look at the history, the reason why governments collapsed, like the Weimar Republic and others from inflation, is because they had a central bank that printed money. At what point are we going to learn that is not a successful policy during any crisis? And Powell accommodated all of that. He may suddenly have transformed himself into caring about the debt, but that's like an arsonist saying we should stop burning buildings down.
Right. So I'm talking to Tom Del Beccaro, who's one of the top political analysts in the country. He is the author of a new book called The Lessons of the American Civilization, which is a fantastic book. And Tom, just in the 2 minutes we have left before we have to take a break, I wanted to ask you about you were the chair of the Republican Party for many years in California. Is Gavin Newsom crazy?
Well, I think he just grew up in an environment where government was the only option, right? Nancy Pelosi, he was backed by Getty, and he he has always wanted to be president. So he's got more ambition than brains. And that's a dangerous thing. The people who want George Washington didn't want to be president, and that's why he was a good person to be president.
Right.
But as you know, in the last between January 2022 and June of 2024, California only created 5,400 jobs. Why was that? Well, look at the fact that the minimum wage went to $20. And what happened? We lost 6,000 jobs in the fast food industry.
Wow.
What does the law of demand say? We're price sensitive. The more something costs, the less of it you get. So we're getting less employment and businesses are leaving. I know you're friends with Andy Pudsner, and they stopped during his presidency of that group. They stopped opening up new restaurants in California because they saw long-term debt, high labor costs, pushed by government, not by the economy. So I think Newsom thinks that the best thing he can do is run on the left. By the way, you know what the biggest lie from Pelosi about if the Democrats had only had a primary, maybe they could have won this time around. If they had had that primary, all the Democrats would have run to the left. They would have been on record as to how radical they are, and they would have lost even worse.
Yeah, and as it was, they picked the most liberal senator in America. So it was an amazing election. I'm expecting big things. Tom Del Beccaro, thanks so much for taking some time on your Saturday afternoon. Very much appreciate. The book is The Lessons of the American Civilization.